What's up? It is Raphael with NBA Draft Junkies, and guess what? He's back. So I got my guy. Will Morris is back. He has been probably the most, I don't know if controversial is the right word, but he's definitely has had the most divided comments of everyone that I've had on. But he also has a lot of people that said that they liked his takes and they liked the fact that he backed up his his backed up whatever the players and justified why he had them there. I'll read some of the comments. So someone says, I really enjoyed this episode. This kid seems super bright, like genuinely smart. Then it goes on to say, I'd love to see him do more podcasts because really every single thing he says is backed up by so much factual stuff. Love the knowledge. I'm a fan. Someone says, this is different. Someone says, what the F is wrong with you guys? Just delete your YouTube account. You clearly don't know about the NBA. Someone says, good. I subscribed. I'd rather watch snails than hear this kid. I really disagree with the order, but doesn't take away from the fact that the points were valid. Interesting draft board. I may not agree, but he explained how he made his choices. Who's to say he's not right in the end? Grant Riller at number 8. Boo this man. These picks are terrible. This guy's insane. Best mock I've seen, and I really agree with. Really insightful. So the comments are, there's no middle ground. It's either people think it is crazy or people love it. So I'm a fan just because none of us know. Like, we don't know. How can we be right or wrong? Like, whatever year Giannis was number 1, I'm pretty sure there's someone out there that made a mock that said, I think Giannis is the best player in this draft. And they said they were stupid. Or if Rudy Gobert was in the same draft, I'm sure somebody thought he was a top 5 pick and everybody said they were crazy. I mean, there's so many guys that, again, if someone said Jokic was number 1 on their draft board, the same reaction would have been made. You're stupid, yada, yada, yada. None of us are right. And you can't really judge a draft class until at least 4 or 5 years after the draft. So, I mean, it's on YouTube. It's going to be up. If Pokusevski ends up being a star and he ends up having a better career, and I mean, I want to be able to reply to all of those people's comments that said you were crazy, because it's going to be up. And because NBA teams don't get it right. Yeah. And these are the people that are paid good money to, select these players, and they have all the intel and all the access that we don't have. And if they're not getting it right all the time, then how can we expect me or you or anybody else on Twitter to get it right? But I just love the fact that your mock draft is your mock draft. Nobody's looks like it. I mean, a lot of times they're redundant, and yours is totally different. So had to bring you back on. Thank you for coming back on. We finished at number 10. And so here we are at number 11. Who is number 11 on your... Actually, you know what? I forgot to even introduce you. Will, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been traveling the last few days. I'm glad to be back home. Yeah, I mean, I was in LA. I had an NBA player that wanted me to come out there and put him through some workouts or whatever. So that was fun. LA is not a bad place to be. But I didn't have my setup, and I kind of got behind on my work. So I'm glad to be back home.
Yeah, that's where I've been, just at home. So,
all right. Let's get into it. Number 11. Who's number 11 on your big board?
Yeah, so at 11, I have the Spurs going with Patrick Williams. It's sort of interesting because when I posted it, my mock here on my Twitter page, someone commented on it. Oh, this is really low for Pat. And sort of scrolling through like I don't know, the Bleacher Report and the ESPN articles and stuff, it seems like he's picked up a lot of steam. It seems like teams almost see him as this like big time upside bet. And I've sort of had him in this like late lottery ish range for a while. Um, and I really like Pat, but I don't know if he's like has that crazy upside. But getting into what I like about him, I think he's a really good team defender. Specifically as like a weak side rim protector. I think he has great instincts there. Pretty quick off the ground, and he's really strong too. Good wingspan. I think 6'11". And then he can make plays in the passing lanes as well. I think there's those plays where he'll jump a pass and then he'll have like a monster transition dunk. Those are always entertaining. To me, I think one of his weaknesses on the defensive end is actually his perimeter defense in terms of just like sliding with guards. I think he's almost pitched as this like multi-positional defender who you'll be able to switch on to smaller players. And I don't really see that. I think he's a little bit stiff. People have talked about like how he has overdeveloped quads, and that kind of hurts his movement. So yeah, I mean that worries me a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be able to like tone down his quads, and maybe that'll improve his movement skills. Can you think of an example of like a guy who had like whose legs were like too built, and then like
No, not at all.
that like so that does scare me a little bit with him. I think it kind of puts a cap on him defensively. On the offensive end, pretty raw right now, but I think there's some pretty great skill flashes as a handler. He's a good passer. Can like make reads out of pick and roll with either hand. And then he can even hit pull-ups every now and then, which is always good to see from someone his age.
Yep.
And then the spot-up shooting, he was around 32% on low volume this year from three, with I think 80% from the line. So, like the volume isn't great and the efficiency isn't great, but the free throw percentage is good. So he clearly has some touch. I buy the shot. So, that's I can see one being lower on him if they think like, oh, the volume there isn't great. He's not super efficient. I don't know how much I trust him as a shooter, but I generally buy it. So to me, I guess I see him as this really interesting, like weak side rim protecting forward prospect, with like some creation equity, but not too much. Mostly just like attacking closeouts and hitting pull-ups off a couple dribbles. But I don't know if he's like this big time like creator wing prospect who has like a lot of upside, which seems to be what NBA teams are thinking at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's drawn a lot of Kawhi comparisons, and then if he ends up at number 11 going to San Antonio, that's only going to intensify. And I can see them in a sense. It's hard to compare anybody to Kawhi because, Kawhi has a very basic game in a sense. There's really no flash to it, just gets to his spots. But I think if you watch Kawhi in college and you look at his old film, to me, there weren't a lot of flashes of him being the player that he is today. But I think that with Patrick Williams, if he works on his ball handling, if he can get to the point where he doesn't have to have, a lot of shake and bake to his game, but if he can just kind of get to his spots like Kawhi does and shoot the pull up and become a better 3-point shooter, then I think he can be Kawhi light. Again, I see some of the similarities there. I think that he can be a pretty good defender, but not the lockdown defender that Kawhi is. But I'll just go on a limb and say I think Kawhi has got him paid because teams are going to be looking for a very similar player that they feel like they can develop into this 3-4 hybrid that can make pull-up jumpers, knock down open threes, and then make plays for others from time to time. So I think that I think that's what teams are looking at. It's just kind of weird to see guys' stock rising at this point when, I haven't seen any, to my knowledge, I don't know if he's worked out for any teams live. I mean, maybe he has. I just haven't read them. And teams have just kind of been doing their interviews virtual. And so to me, a lot of times when you see guys jumping and rising at this point, especially this year, I think a lot of it is just driven by agencies because right now Tyrese Maxey has all of a sudden climbed into the top 10 on a lot of boards. And, is it based off of the pro day that he had? Because what if everybody else had a pro day that was on ESPN too? Their stock would go up too. So, but I digress. But we're back on track to a player that everybody is higher on than you. This is the lowest I've seen. So who is number 12 I guess this is your draft. I'm sorry. So who do you have the Kings selecting at number 12?
Yeah, so I have the Kings going with Deni Avdija from Maccabi Tel Aviv. Yeah, I guess this probably seems low for Deni. And I'd assume that most people would think I have him this low because they don't think I buy his jumper. The mechanics are okay. He has some, it seems like it's like a core strength problem or something like that because he'll like kick his legs out pretty far when he's heavily contested. I don't know what your read is on that, but I think like he has okay touch. The free throw percentage is really weird. Like it's been in the 50s. And that's concerning because there tends to be a correlation between free throw shooting and shooting success in the NBA. It's not a direct correlation. I think Chandler Parsons was in like the 50s also from the foul line, and he's obviously was a great shooter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually buy Deni as a spot up shooter. I think like he clearly has pretty good touch. And he's like, I don't know if he's like Kawhi level as a worker, but he's supposedly has a super high motor.
Yep.
You can see it on the court too. I mean, he just grinds the entire game. I guess the reason I'm lower on him is I'm low on him as a creator. I think like, to me at least, it seems like people are like kind of getting like comfortability handling the ball mixed up with like actual creation ability. Because like for a 6'9" guy, he can really handle it, but like if he's going to be like a volume pick and roll creator, I don't think it's going to work too well, just because I don't think he has like he's not like a super bursty athlete, but as we all know, like guys can compensate for that with like ability to change directions and speeds, manipulating defenders with pace. And that's something I don't think he does too well. To me, he's mostly just like straight line. And when he gets going, he's really fast, but there's not like much change in his speeds. There's not much variation there. So that kind of makes it important, his shooting like really important. Because if you're not really creating much, I think you have to be a good shooter if you're a complementary player. And I like his jump shot to the point where I like have him this high. But I don't know if I can really like mock him any higher. For that reason, I like his defense a good bit too. I think he's a really instinctual weak side rim protector.
Yep. Very underrated defender.
Yeah, I almost see him as a defense first prospect. I trust, like, I think on the offensive end, because like I think he can shoot, but I don't think he's a great shooter, and then I don't think he has like that great creation ability. So like I think like he's probably going to be like a net neutral offensive player, but I think there's a chance he's like even a positive impact defensive player, not like an amazing defender, but like a guy who, you know, makes a winning impact on that end. He's like, I don't know. People sometimes talk about his movement skills. Like, it's not like he's an amazing mover, but I don't think he's bad.
Yeah, I think his movement is fine. I mean, I think that, you know, like you mentioned, once he gets going, he's fast. He may not be like have this awesome first step, or his pace may not be there as far as just like changing directions and all of that, or changing speeds. But I like him. I think he plays a winning brand of basketball, which if he falls to the Kings, that would be good because they need someone like that.
Yeah.
They, you know, on paper, their roster doesn't look bad. I think they should be able to compete for a playoff spot. I mean, at least be competitive. And but yeah, I think Deni would be like a glue guy that they need. So I don't think he falls in number 12. I mean, I don't think you probably do either. But this is just like your mock draft based off of your assessment of him. So I think that's everything you said is valid. Which, you know, all your points that you make, you definitely bring up very good points, and you back up why you feel that way.
Yeah, the Kings fit to me is really good too, because like with Fox and Bagley there, I mean, my idea of them is like playing fast and running in transition a lot.
Yeah.
And I think Deni can be a really good transition initiator with that speed.
Yeah.
And he's a good passer there too. He's a good passer in general, but especially in transition. So yeah, I like Deni in Sacramento a lot, but like seems like he's going to get drafted a lot higher than that.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what it looks like. All right. So here we go. Another shocker. I mean, I guess I shouldn't even say that because your draft board is going to be full of shockers or unconventional picks. But this is the highest I've seen Desmond Bane, and you have him going number 13 to the Pelicans.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the way people talk about Desmond Bane on Twitter, I think he should be here on most mocks. In my opinion, if he's not the best shooter in the draft, he's definitely top 3. I'm just pulling up his college numbers right now. So he had 575 attempts in his 4 years at VCU. And he shot 43.3% and 80% from the foul line. And there's a lot of versatility there. Like he can hit deep pull-ups from anywhere in the half court. And then he can like fade off screens, run up off pin downs. Just a lot of versatility there in his shooting. I think he's a really good passer. I don't know how functional it is because there's definitely some handling limitations. Like I don't think he's probably a below average creator or handler rather from the wing. Like if you put pressure on him, he's probably going to pick up his dribble. So yeah, and he even played point guard a little bit this year at TCU, which is kind of funny because he has those like creation limitations, but he still had like a 10 assist game, and like showed some stuff as a pick and roll passer that I definitely wasn't expecting coming into the year. So yeah, I mean, to me, he's probably in that like shooting specialist role on offense. He can hit like 1-2 dribble pull-ups, and then defensively, um, I think he's a really smart team defender. Like he communicates so well. Um, Always seems to be in the right place at the right time. I definitely have like mild concerns about him as like an on-ball guy. Um, like he's
Because you
not,
think he's stiff.
he's a little stiff, but his team defense is really good to the point where I still think he can be a pretty impactful defensive player. So I guess the player I just described is like the prototypical 3-and-D guy. So to me, that belongs in the lottery.
Yeah, he has a defined role as a shooter. I haven't really seen a lot of people consider him a defender, but just more so as a guy that's going to come in and shoot lights out, bring gravity to, just kind of space the floor for your best player. I haven't seen him this high. I have been under the impression that he's going to be a player that falls into the 20s and ends up on a playoff team and has an impact. So I thought he was someone that I could see coming in and making first team all rookie. Like, I don't like the Lakers. I'm not a Lakers fan, even though I have done Lakers fast break shows. But my fear is like he falls to the Lakers at like 28 and just gives them a sniper. But then I don't think he falls past Brooklyn just because they need guys that don't need the ball in their hands, guys that are going to space the floor. And even if they decide to keep Joe Harris, if you have some crazy lineup of like Kyrie, Joe Harris, Bane, Durant, and Jared Allen or DeAndre Jordan, like who do you defend? Like that would be tough to defend with those two spacing the floor. But I mean, so like his fit with New Orleans. And again, New Orleans is all over the place with like trade rumors. I've seen Drew Holiday possibly being moved. But let's just say they have the same lineup this year. They bring Holiday back, Ball is back, Redick is there, and only guy they lose is, let's say, Favors. Where do you think he fits in on the rotation? Is he like your eighth man for the Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like he'd probably come off the bench, considering the guys they have in his first year. But I don't know if Drew's going to be there next year or Redick or whoever. But to me, it's a pretty good fit because Zion commands a lot of gravity because he's just such a mammoth down low in the post, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping they use him more as a handler because it seemed like they were posting him up like really frequently, and I want him to be completely unleashed. But yeah, I think having Bane playing on the perimeter and just playing off of Zion's gravity will really work well. And if he can just like hit those like hit like that couple dribble pull up after he gets chased off the line, because he's gonna command like pretty hard closeouts.
Yeah.
Then he should be golden for the Pelicans, and I trust him to hit those shots because he's a pretty accomplished shooter off the dribble.
And for me, on my next mock, I think that they're kind of deep on the wings. I think they're going to need some front court help. And they're going to have to find a front court player that can complement Zion. And there's only one guy, I think, that can do that at where I think they're selecting at, and it still could be considered reach, but that would be like Jalen Smith.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm probably lower on Smith than the consensus, but yeah, maybe we can get into that on another day.
Well, but that's why I like having you on, because none of your picks are with the consensus. And this is a perfect transition to number 14. The consensus has James Wiseman as a top 2 pick. That's what I've been seeing. And they say Charlotte loves him, so all right, top 3 pick. You have Wiseman as the last pick in the lottery. So why are you lower on Wiseman than the consensus?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess to start, I don't think Wiseman is going to or I'd be pretty surprised if he flames out in the league. He's big and he's going to get drafted highly. And I think teams are going to invest a lot of resources into making sure he works out. So yeah, I mean, I don't think this is going to be if he gets picked like 5th, I don't think or in the top 5 rather, I don't think a GM is going to get fired over that. To me, I guess I just don't think he should have been as highly ranked in high school as he was. I think his EYBL true shooting percentage was 51%. And the reason for that is because of his shot selection. He takes a lot of those kind of wild turnaround fadeaways.
He thinks he's LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Rasheed Wallace.
Yeah, and that really worried me coming into the year. I was, because if he was doing that stuff at Memphis, it wouldn't have been very good. But I was definitely encouraged to see him in those 3 games. It seemed like he was accepting more of the
rim roller, run the floor, just energy role. Yep.
Yeah, that kind of role, which is good to see. But who knows, because those games they were playing against
South Carolina State, Central Tech, Chicago, something, or it was. And then the Oregon game, it was only one half. He was in foul trouble in the first half. So
yeah, and I mean, to me, what's more important about those games is that he was going up against 6'8" centers, so he didn't really have any competition down there.
Yeah.
So it would have been really embarrassing if he was taking those fadeaways.
Bol was. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but there's a game early in Bol's college career. They may have played Texas Southern, and I want to say he was being defended by some wide body, undersized, 6'7", probably 260-pound center, and he just completely settled for nothing but jump shots.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the difference between Bol though is that Bol was a really good shooting prospect. That was kind of his game. Wiseman has never really been a good shooter. I think you can probably get him shooting spot ups at some point in his career, but yeah, I guess the other reason I'm lower on Wiseman is I guess I'm lower on his tools, and I think it's the perfect example of how athleticism as just its own term isn't great to use, because James Wiseman is 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan, really strong, and he's so fast in a straight line. He's like a gazelle running the floor. So in that regard, he's a great athlete. However, there's other aspects of athleticism, such as quickness off the ground and, ability to turn your hips and move your feet. And in those areas, I think he's a little bit lacking. Mainly the turning his hips. I think his quickness off the ground seemed like it improved a little bit at Memphis. Watching some of his high school stuff, he was like a big time load leaper. But yeah, so I guess I'm lower on his tools. I just worry that like in a playoff basketball setting, you can like switch, like run pick and rolls and kind of switch him, and he's going to struggle. I mean, we see Rudy Gobert struggle in the playoffs, who's a lot more mobile than James Wiseman. So yeah, I don't think Wiseman is gonna like flame out of the NBA. So I don't want anyone to take me having him here as that. I just don't think like it'd be a good use of resources to take him that highly because, well, I think he's more than capable of averaging like 16-9 or something in the NBA. I don't know how much he's going to actually help you win games or, you know, win important playoff games.
I mean, like Boston would love to have him fall down this far. That would be somewhat ideal for them. But do you think, like, if he goes to Boston, do you think he fills a role? Like, do you think he makes them any better?
I do. Yeah, I'm from the Boston area, so I know the Celtics. It's not like we necessarily need a big, but we could use a big with Wiseman's skill, considering he's just so big down there. And we have Daniel Tice,
6'8", 230 pounds.
He's a very good player, but Wiseman would bring something that he definitely lacks, which is, you know, just being big and big and long. Like James Wiseman just sticks his arms up, you know, and it's hard to score at the rim, you know. So yeah, I think this would be a really good situation for both parties. Wiseman in terms of like having a role on a team that can actually win games. I kind of like, to me, if he gets picked highly to Charlotte or something, I think his career could play out somewhat similarly to Andre Drummond's, where, you know, he puts up good numbers, maybe makes an all-star game or something like that, but you know, he commands the big contract. You give him $25 million a year for 4 years. That limits you in terms of signing other players. He's good enough, and your team is good enough to the point where you're the like 8th, 9th, or 10th seed, but you're never really competitive, and that's kind of what I worry about if Wiseman gets drafted that highly. Yeah, I just don't think it'd be a great use of resources to use that high a pick on him.
They say that Charlotte loves him, but you know, a lot of stuff you're hearing right now is kind of smoke screen anyway. So
yeah, who knows?
Who knows? All right, number 15. You have Malachi Flynn going to the Orlando Magic. Malachi, I guess by the time this video comes out, I have my Malachi Flynn breakdown up on YouTube. And I think he feels a need for Orlando, an immediate need. I think DJ Augustine's a free agent. Michael Carter-Williams is a free agent, which leaves Markelle Fultz as the lone point guard on the roster, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the highest I've seen Flynn. Why are you higher on Malachi Flynn than others?
Yeah, I mean, Flynn was a pretty dominant college basketball player for San Diego State, who was one of the best teams in the whole country. So that's always a plus, but I think his skill set really translates well to the NBA. As a pick and roll scorer and passer, I mean, he's right up there with the top guys in this class. So crafty with like his in and out dribble and like snaking screens and things like that.
His pace. He just plays that like this. Just really good pace. Never like too fast, never out of control. You can't speed him up. It just he plays like the old veteran at the park playing against a bunch of young kids who are just going too fast.
Yeah. Yeah. He plays at his own pace, and the defense is always on their heels when he has the ball.
Yep.
He's a great shooter too. I think he was at 37 or 38% this year on pretty high volume. And he has great touch on those like floaters too. And he's a good finisher. I wish he was able to get there more.
Yeah.
I worry that he's not going to be able to get to the rim enough to be that big time creator. But yeah, as this like spacing secondary creation type guard in Orlando, playing alongside Fultz there, I think he works quite well. And then on the defensive end, he's really small, which limits him, but
he was defensive player of the year conference.
Yeah, he's a really good defensive player. And he's not going to be like defensive player or like an all defense guy in the NBA, but as a guy who can chase players off screens, sort of like, I mean, obviously the easiest example to think of there is like Fred VanVleet, who's stronger, but I think Flynn can sort of be like that as a chaser. Really good team defender as well. Just makes the right rotations. And yeah, Flynn just strikes me as a guy who's going to be really solid. And I like that a lot at 15 for Orlando.
Are you mentioned like he doesn't really get to the rim a lot. Are you concerned with his lack of athleticism and first step and speed? Because like when I watched his film, I didn't see him as a good finisher. I saw a guy that struggled getting there, and when he was there, he got some shots blocked at the rim. I think on paper the percentages were there that he was a good finisher, but the eye test and the numbers, in my opinion, were different. And I think that on one hand, he could struggle with NBA length and NBA rim protectors, but then there's another part of me that says he may be a little bit better in the NBA because the floor may be more spaced. But as far as like that pop, that quick step is that to get to the rim, he's lacking it, but he makes up for it because he's such a good pull-up shooter. Like when he's running the pick and rolls, he has a really good stop and pop jumper. But I do have some concerns about like his, like I said, just his lack of athleticism, especially around the basket. He's a below the rim finisher that may not be able to get to the rim often.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think he's pretty crafty once he gets to the rim, and yeah, I mean, he's small and not super long. So he'll get some shots blocked. Yeah, my main worry though is that he's just not going to get there enough. Mm-hmm. And that's probably why I have him lower than someone like Grant Riller, who I think is just so explosive. And he's a good shooter off the dribble too.
Crazy finisher, just physical, angles, touch. He's got it all. All right, so number 16, I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan. And you gave us Josh Green. Sell me on why Josh Green is a good fit for Portland. Well, Blazers need depth, period. So he'll help out in that category. But yeah, just tell me why you think Josh Green is a good fit.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing this mock and like thinking through it, I didn't anticipate Josh Green being this high. I think he might. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen on draft day, but I wouldn't be too surprised if he gets drafted like sooner than most would be thinking, just because I don't think there's too many like great on-ball defenders on the wing in this class. Like other than, I mean, Vassell's more of that like off-ball roamer guy, and I think we talked last week about Okoro being like a potential wing stopper, like big time creator, on ball defender. But other than Okoro, I mean, Josh Green is probably the second guy or the second best option in that regard. I think his like on ball point of attack defense is really good. He's strong, he's long, and he turns his hips so quickly. Really good at defending shifty players, light on his feet. So I think he has the tools to be a really, really good on-ball defender. Not on the level of Okoro, but in that second tier in this class, and probably alone in that second tier. I worry about him offensively. I don't think he's that good a shooter. I think you can probably get him to shoot spot ups okay, but he needs to become more confident. It seemed like he was a little bit hesitant to even take like open spot ups at times, but I don't know. The percentages weren't too bad.
Yeah, the percentages were. It's one of those things where I don't believe his percentages. Like when I see him, I don't think of him being a shooter, but he was a much better shooter on paper than my perception of him, to the point where I had to like really take a deep dive at his film to see if like, you know, the percentages were as good as you know, as the numbers say. So I think he's a decent shooter. I think he definitely has upside to become a much better shooter, especially, at least in my opinion, considering that he was such a dominant player on the high school level, that because he was bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic than everybody. And then when he got to college, he wasn't always able to just kind of bully his way to the basket like he did in high school. So I think like his shooting, based off the percentages, is ahead of where I thought he would be at this time last year. Now, whether it translates next year in the NBA, those are my concerns.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, the shooting is going to have to be there if he's going to succeed in the NBA. But to me, the biggest worry is what happens after he gets chased off the line. I think he can pass really well against the tilted defense, but
got to move it. A hard closeout, better swing it back and reset, because I mean, maybe the pull up, like I've seen flashes of him make some pull ups, but yeah, after that, then yeah, swing it back, get out the way, give it to, if he goes to the Blazers, give it to Dame or CJ.
Yeah, I mean, because his finishing is really, really
wild.
It's pretty ugly at times. It's kind of weird because he's a great vertical athlete, and it seems like his transition attempts sort of buoy his percentages, because I think he was at 60% at the rim this year, which is just, he's not that good as a finisher. I don't have his half court percentages, but I'd assume they're pretty low.
He just plays out of control to me. He kind of reminds me sometimes of Gerald Wallace when they used to call him Crash, because when he drives, it's a straight line drive that is going to end up in a collision with someone trying to take a charge. It ends up being like a bang bang call for the refs, or he ends up on the floor because he missed it. He just lacks, well, to me, he lacks creativity on the offensive end of the floor. And then he just lacks like polish and control. He's just used to being able to bully his way there, and he just has some pretty ugly finishes, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like we're kind of in a similar place on Josh Green. But like, I want to make it clear, like, I didn't really anticipate him being this high. Like, I'm not super low on Josh Green, but I think as like an on-ball wing defender, um, he's the second best option in this class. And as a result, that's might get him drafted fairly highly. That's something that Portland could definitely use, or at least from what I've seen in the games I've watched of Portland.
Right. I'm hoping for Sadiq Bey. So, all right. So let's move on to, we're at number 17. This is a guy that I watched him a lot on the AAU level. His last year of AAU, he played for Mo Williams Academy. I was their videographer. I traveled with the team all summer, and I'm pretty high on him. On that team, he wasn't the best player on that team. He didn't receive the most hype. I mean, it was a team that had Billy Preston, Terrence Ferguson, Mark Vital from Baylor, who he's probably going to be maybe preseason first team All Big 12, or he should make preseason All Big 12 team. Mark Vital was on that team, and Skylar did not get the same buzz as those guys because he didn't have like the crazy dunks that Ferg and Vital had. I mean, Billy Preston was just so talented at 6'10" and skilled. But to me, I used to tell people I thought that Skylar was the most important player on that team because he could play one or the two. His game was never flashy, but at the same time, he makes flashy plays, if that makes sense. Like he'll wow you with, you're like, did he just dunk that? Like he's just sneaky athletic. He had an old man's game.
Yeah, that's
And
exactly.
I'm just happy to see him on draft boards. I think he's going to have a good NBA career. I think he's a good complementary guy. I think you can play him at the one or the two. I think that if he ends up going late first round, early second round, he could end up on a good team. And I think he can get some rotation minutes early in his rookie year because he's so smart, high IQ. But again, he's so sneaky. Like if you watch his film, he has these dunks where you're like, how did he just do that? And he reminds me of, as not as a passer, but just kind of like old man crafty, like a little bit of Andre Miller with like his spin move. And I mean, he's not as strong as Andre, but Andre just had this old man game that you felt like he could play in the NBA for 20 years, which he almost did. And so with Skylar, I think because this game is on the ground and it's not based off of lightning quick first step and crazy athleticism, I think that he could end up being like one of these players that ends up playing 12, 13, 14 years just because his, if there is an injury, God forbid, it won't take much away from him.
Yeah, he's just so crafty. You mentioned like the Andre Miller spin move, like that's Skylar's thing too. He pulls that out so often.
Yep.
Like I posted a clip on Twitter the other day of him like rejecting this screen with a spin, and it was just so sick. It didn't result in anything because there's like 5 guys in the lane with like LSU and all their big men, but to me, what's most impressive about Skylar Mays is how often he's able to get to the rim. So he had
deceptive.
Yeah. So here's some numbers. He had 3.15 unassisted rim makes per 40 this year, which is one of the top guys in this class, and a .439 free throw rate, which is quite good. So here's a list of guys since 2011, or including 2011, with above 2.9 unassisted rim makes per 40, who are bigger than 6'4". so obviously Skylar Mays, Norman Powell, Derek White, DeLon Wright, Archie Goodwin, Victor Oladipo, Tony Roten, Jordan Clarkson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and John Conchar. So,
Well, that
there's
last one kind of caught me off guard.
yeah. So I mean, there's and a few guys who barely missed the cut are Spencer Dinwiddie, Markel Fultz, and Josh Hart. Um, so obviously there's some guys in there who didn't really pan out, but someone like Archie Goodwin just like couldn't shoot. Tony Roten couldn't shoot
Couldn't
either.
shoot. Yeah.
So like when you kind of knock out the guys who couldn't shoot, you're left with a really good list of guys. I don't think he's as explosive as Oladipo, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You can't really compare anyone.
Crafty. Yeah, I mean, they're both crafty, but Shai has a different level of unorthodoxness, if that's even a word, to his game.
But to me, that's a really encouraging list because these guys who tend to get to the rim a lot at his size, who just like barely meet this like baseline shooting threshold, tend to work out. And Mays is a really good shooter too. I mean, I shouldn't hype him up too much because the percentages were a little bit inconsistent. I think he finished as like a career 35% guy on pretty good volume in college, but this year 39.4% from three, and he's a career 84.5% free throw shooter on a lot of attempts.
Yep.
It was at 85% this year, 48% on long 2-point jumpers. So it's hard not to buy that shot. And then when you consider how often he gets to the rim, I mean, this seems like a no-brainer guy who should at least be drafted in the first round.
Yep.
Who's gonna get drafted in the 40s.
Yep. Funny story about his free throw shooting. So we were at a tournament in New York somewhere. We had a guy, I won't mention his name, who wasn't a good free throw shooter. He goes up for, it should have been a layup with like 3 seconds left in the game, but he decides he wants to dunk it, gets fouled. And it was a, pretty hard collision. The coach runs out on the floor. It's like, stay down, stay down. He's like, basically has like a knee on his back so the player can't get up. And he's yelling, stay down, stay down, stay down. And the reason he wanted him to stay down because he wanted him to pretend like he was hurt so he wouldn't be able to shoot his free throws. And we needed Skylar to come in and make the 2 free throws to clinch the win. So the fact that, the free throw percentage has always been there. Like he was the guy that we trusted to knock down free throws late in games, even if we had to have someone fake an injury. But yeah, I mean, I like Skylar. I think that his age has been held against him. I think that he, along with a few other guys that are seniors, which it seems like the guys that you're high on, like for example, you have another player that we'll get to today that is a little bit older. His game isn't as sexy as others. Maybe he doesn't have the perceived upside, but he's going to be able to come in and contribute right away. But yeah, I mean, I think Skylar would be a good fit at number 17 for Minnesota. I think he can play with D'Angelo, and but it'd be interesting if they take Pokusevski, then it makes sense. If they take Edwards, like a lot of people are predicting, or LaMelo, then it creates somewhat of a logjam. But 17 is the highest I've seen him. But yeah. He's a guy that I'd be willing to bet that he has a better career than a lot of the players drafted ahead of him, because somebody's going to fall in love with youth and upside over skills and production.
Yeah, I mean, Timberwolves fans are probably going to hate me after I gave him Poku.
Oh yeah,
the guy that I'm assuming your average fan hasn't heard of in Skylar Mays here, but To me, this is a really good fit because Skylar Mays is going to generate rim pressure, which is something that D'Angelo Russell doesn't really do. And Mays can also play off ball as a spot up shooter. So that, works really well. I considered RJ Hampton here because, that was the main thing I had in mind for the Timberwolves here, like a guy who can actually put pressure on the rim. But Hampton is a little bit of a project, I think, with his jump shot. And I gave him Poku at number 1. So yeah, I think it might not be a bad idea to go with a guy who can help keep Cat happy right away and try to get him to re-sign.
Right. He has quite a few years left. But here's another shocker. So I don't have Tyrese Haliburton as low as you do at number 18. But I am not as high on Haliburton as other people. I've even seen in the last few days of talk about him going in the top 5, top 3. I've seen, I think ESPN put a mock out today and they had him like going to Detroit. I'm not for sure. I don't remember. I'll let you get into your reasons first, and then I'll tell you why I'm lower on Haliburton.
Yeah, I think our reasons are probably pretty similar. I'm low on Haliburton as a creator prospect. I think he's an amazing passer. I think he has great vision. He just toys with defenders in the pick and roll, willing to do wild stuff in transition. His jump passes are stuff you like discourage from anyone else, but he's just weirdly good at them. However, he's just not really a threat to score off the dribble. His spot up numbers are good, and I buy his spot up shooting. But his form is just so funky that I don't really see him becoming a guy who's going to be able to hit pull-ups at all. Right. And he needs to be able to hit pull-ups if he's going to have a chance to be a guy who's creating offense in the NBA, because he does not get to the rim at all. So we were talking about Mays last time or a little while ago, who had 3.15 unassisted rim makes per 40. Tyrese Haliburton had 1.49 and a 0.184 free throw rate. So the guys who are guards drafted since 2011, so same sort of pool of players who have free throw rate under 0.2, and then that few makes at the rim per 40 minutes on unassisted makes are Damian Dotson and Andrew Godlock.
Yeah, I forgot his name. Mini Mamba. What was Godlock's nickname?
I was too young. So that's why I butchered the name. But yeah, I don't really see him as a creator. And guys who get to the rim that infrequently, the ones who have like kind of worked out as creator prospects are Tyler Hero, who's creation equity, it kind of remains to be seen. Devin Booker, who if you're comparing Haliburton and Booker as pull-up shooters, it's just kind of ridiculous to do.
Right.
D'Angelo Russell and then Malcolm Brogdon, like all really good off the dribble shooters, and Haliburton just is not there. They don't really need to defend him. They can just play the pass, and that kind of takes away his passing threat. So yeah, I don't know about Haliburton as an offensive player. I think as a guy attacking against a tilted defense or passing against a tilted defense, and the guy who's hitting spot ups, he can be pretty good. Defensively, I don't really love him as an on-ball guy. I think
Too skinny.
He's really skinny. He does not get over screen wells and does not move his feet well. But his off-ball instincts are so good.
Right.
Sort of like the passing smarts translating to the defensive end, where he's just, he's a really good off-ball defensive player.
Yeah, I think fit for him is going to be really important. I mean, it's kind of cliche because you can say that for everybody, but I think fit for him is probably even more important than others, because if he goes to Golden State, if they trade down and they end up swapping with a team, I think he's a very good fit for Golden State. But now, let's say he goes to Detroit and they trade Derrick Rose, and even if they keep Blake Griffin, I think he's a terrible fit there because, at least for me, I like my point guards to be able to get downhill. I want you to be able to run a pick and roll, and the defense has to pick their poison. I want a point guard that late in the game that can get to the free throw line. I want my point guard that if it's late in the shot clock, it's 5 seconds, you can throw him the ball and he can create something. Haliburton does none of that for me. I think that he is a very good team player. I think if you put him next to a James Harden, then he's good. And in this case, you have him going to the Mavs, which is a very good fit because Luka does everything that Haliburton doesn't do. I think he'd be a very good complementary guard next to Luka because of his size. He knocks down open shots. And then you give like a potent offense, another ball mover, another passer, and another shooter. So I love the fit. And I think there's quite a few guys that I think could come in and fit well with Dallas. But yeah, fit is important for him. If he goes to Dallas, then I think he looks like a first or second team all rookie player. If he goes to another team, then I think he looks awful because I just don't think of him as an engine. And I want my point guard or my primary ball handler to be an engine. And I had just mentioned on a podcast that I did before this one, let's say it was the traditional NBA where the players worked out against each other. And if I had a workout with him and any of the other guards, I think he may beat them in the interview aspect because you're going to fall in love with him as a person and his personality and his IQ. But let's say he was matched up against Cole Anthony in a workout. I think Anthony just destroys him. And then you start having questions or concerns about him as a one-on-one defender because I think that, his lack of strength, I think that I don't want to say he's not competitive, but I see like a Cole Anthony having a more competitive fire. Or I think like with Lewis, his speed definitely puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And for me, I think you can be the greatest passer in the world. You can have the greatest court vision, all of that. But if you're not a threat to score, it limits how effective of a playmaker or passer you are. So, if they're running a ball screen and instead of being able to get the switch out on the big and make the team pay, they know he's not going to shoot off the dribble, and he ends up doing what? Swinging it to the side, and then now you got to run a side pick and roll with another player. So I agree 100% on Haliburton. But I think he's a safe pick, and I think he's such a likable guy that he's going to end up going higher. But again, Detroit, I think that would be a bad fit. I think he could probably fit in with Phoenix early. If you bring him off the bench behind Rubio, I think that Orlando would probably be a bad fit, in my opinion. It depends. He could probably play off of Fultz. But yeah, just as far as like being that guy that you give the keys to, I just don't see it. But
yeah, and I don't know how many Timberwolves subscribers you have, but it might tick them off a little bit if I have Tyrese Haliburton, who's projected to go pretty highly, one pick after I give them Skylar Mays. But to that, I just say, like, think about the rim pressure free throw generation problems you would have with a Tyrese Haliburton, D'Angelo Russell backcourt.
yeah,
I'll just leave it at that.
yeah, that's so true. All right, let's move on to number 19. You have Xavier Tillman, he was the player that I was kind of talking about when I mentioned Skylar, that you have him higher than other guys. There's people with players that have a perceived higher upside that are going to go higher in the draft, just how it works out. And Tillman doesn't have his game isn't sexy. He doesn't have ideal size. He's not going to sell jerseys, but he's going to be a very productive NBA player that I think has an 8 to 10 year career. So what are your thoughts on him going 19 to the Nets? Even though I think he'd have a hard time getting minutes on the Nets, even though I think he'll be productive if he did get minutes, simply because DeAndre Jordan is getting $10 million because he's friends with Kevin Durant. And then unless they move Jared Allen, which I've seen his name come up in a couple rumors, but overall, why do you think that Tillman will be a good fit there?
Yeah, I think Tillman is kind of being overlooked in this class because of the things you mentioned, and then combine that with the fact that he's a big man, and bigs seem to be getting valued a little bit lower. But Tillman is just a really good basketball player in every regard. On the defensive end, he's just in the right place at the right time so often. A really good rim protector despite being limited vertically, and that's gonna hurt him a little bit in the NBA, but he's really strong. That helps, and just rotates really well. And he's long too. I think he has a 7'2" wingspan, despite only being 6'8". So that's definitely a major plus for him as a rim protector. Very not like an outlier mobility guy, but certainly one of the better mobility bigs in this class. You can get him playing up high in pick and roll coverage. You probably don't want him switching, but I mean, how many switch bigs are there in the NBA right now? The only one really is Bam. So,
yep.
Yeah. And then offensively, the shooting is going to have to improve. But there are aspects of his game that are really, really good, specifically his short roll passing.
Yep.
I mean, he's maybe Poku and like Killian Tilly, and Obi Toppin's a good short roll passer too. But to me, Tillman takes the cake as the best short roll passer in this class. I mean, he's manipulating defenders with his eyes, makes such quick decisions, swinging it to the corner, like making a dump down pass. To me, he's a guy who you can run like handoff plays with, too. Like, he can handle the ball pretty well for a big man.
Yep.
And then I guess the last thing I'll say here is go back and watch the March Madness game from his sophomore year against Duke and Zion Williamson, where he absolutely manhandles Zion. If you look at the numbers, Zion will have like 20-something points or whatever, but it's because Xavier Tillman got into a little bit of foul trouble. But when Xavier and Zion were matched up, I mean, Xavier Tillman manhandled him pretty hard.
Yeah, he couldn't bully him. Zion couldn't just move him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a play where Tillman literally boxes out Zion out of bounds. So Tillman is an outlier strength guy. I mean, Zion is like,
He
I've
bullies
never
NBA players.
he's one of the craziest athletes in terms of strength and athletic, in terms of strength and like movement to ever enter the NBA. And Tillman outmuscled him. So yeah,
Yeah, it just
I
seems like Michigan State always finds these guys, like these undersized, wide body, strong, but skilled guys. And I mean, I know there's going to be comparisons to Draymond because they both went to the same school. I mean, it'd be tough to be Draymond, but I can see the similarities without it being like the lazy comparison because they both went to Michigan State. But it just seems like Izzo has that's just what Izzo likes. Like he likes strong, wide body bigs.
yeah, Draymond's really mobile, and that sets him apart from Tillman to me. But
Yep.
yeah, I still really like Tillman, and the Nets want to win now. And with DeAndre Jordan and Jarrett Allen as more like play finisher type people, rim runner, bouncy guys. Tillman gives them something in their front court that they don't have right now.
Yep.
And I think he can find a role on that team right away and play playoff minutes.
All right. Number 20, last one for today. Miami Heat. And who do you think would be a good fit for Miami?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know where to go here for Miami, so I gave them sort of a gamble type guy, and that's Leandro Bolmaro. Bolmaro is playing in Barcelona right now for their EuroLeague and Spanish League team, and I mean, I haven't dove too much in the film from this year, but from what I've seen, the returns haven't been amazing, specifically in terms of his shooting, which is kind of the swing skill for him.
Yeah, because to me, he's never been a good shooter.
Yeah, and the volume there is really low because he hasn't really played too much this year. So you don't know, the percentage could improve. But yeah, to me, this is like a creation bet because Bolmaro's handle is really, really good. It's like, to me, I think Deni's probably a better prospect, but I think Bolmaro has more creation equity than Deni. Really good live dribble passer. But he's just limited as a scorer with the finishing, the shooting.
Good defender. Did you see this block he had a couple days ago where he got beat off the dribble and he was able to just beat it off the glass? I forgot who it was.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was a couple days ago, and it was I want to say the player was it was a good guard. It may have been a former NBA guard, but he gets beat off the dribble, and the guy goes for the layup, and he just meets him at the rim and just smacks it off the glass. But I like Bolmaro. But one of the things that you mentioned, the shooting is the swing skill. I think if he ever develops into the shooter, he becomes really good. It sounds basic because you can say that about a lot of people. But when I watched him play last year at the under 19s? Yeah, under 19s. I liked his effort off the ball. Like he moved a lot. Like he sprinted out. He was always active. And then I think that if he becomes a good set shooter, and then maybe later on down the line, if he can become a decent shooter off the move and just his activities, it will open things up. Even if he doesn't do a lot of catch and shooting, I don't expect him to be like Duncan Robinson. But if he is a good spot up shooter and I think that will open up for him to catch defenses kind of inching towards him, and then his activity will open up easy opportunities for him to get cutting to the basket. But I like him with the ball in his hands. I like Argentinian players anyway, just because they have like this flair to their game and to their passes. I know he had some pretty impressive passes and reads last year, but I like his size. I think if I had to do a player comparison, I think if he can knock shots down, he could end up being maybe like a Joe Ingles type complementary player that could be your secondary ball handler, and he may even have more upside than Joe Ingles. You may be able to even sneak him in at the point in some lineups, like with a second unit or whatever. But I like the fact that he stayed in Barcelona. He's going to play for Jasikevičius. He's going to get some pretty good experience there. And he should be a good draft and stash guy for a team. So, yeah, I mean, I like him. I have him as a first-round pick. For whatever reasons, I've seen some people dropping him out of the first round. But to me, he's a first-round pick. And I mentioned before in other podcasts, he was better to me, or I should say I was more impressed with him in Barcelona last year than I was with him at the under-19s. Like when he had to be the best player on the team, I didn't think that he was impressive. But when you put him on a team where he just can fill a role, I thought he was a much better player with Barcelona's senior team than he was with the Argentina under-19 team, because his role was to score and be the best player, but he fit better as a complementary piece.
Yeah, and I mean, watching those EuroLeague games from last year and a little bit this year too, but like he's a really good defensive player.
Smart, really smart.
He's smart, a little over aggressive at times, but he's a big, strong guy who moves his feet well, and he's just a terror on the ball. So high motor, high energy. That's going to translate over to the NBA so well. And then I don't know if you saw, but ESPN released their like draft guide, and they sort of graded players on all sorts of different skills based on where they were now and what their potential was. So like, I don't know. Well, they graded Leandro Bolmaro's shooting as like a 73, and Cole Anthony's was like a 76. And then they said his potential was like an 87 or something like that. And that got me thinking, like, man, if Bolmaro is only that much far behind Cole Anthony as a shooting prospect and his potential is that good as a shooter, I mean, he's probably a top 3 or 4 pick in this class.
Yeah.
But I worry about his scoring enough to the point where I have him down here. He's not even close to Cole Anthony as a shooter. So
yeah, especially Cole Anthony is very good catch and shoot off the ball score. He was very efficient in that field. So it just, that's weird. I saw it. I didn't like click on each player individually to read the what they said about them, the analysis, but I plan on doing that tonight. So, but yeah, thanks, man, for coming on again. This is part 2. We'll break this up into 3. This is my guy, Will Morris, the most hated or loved, depending on what you thought. He's widely known for taking Aleksej Pokusevski #1 for the Timberwolves. So he's not a popular guy in Minnesota for sure, with Pokusevski and Skylar Mays as their 2 first-round picks. But where can the fans reach you at as far as like following your work? Because I saw that you did another podcast.
I did, yeah. So I went on the Draft Dummies podcast the other day with Cody and Sam, 2 really good guys. Talked about Kyra Lewis, Grant Riller, Tillman, who we talked about here, and then Nate Hinton too.
Okay.
who we'll probably get to at some point. He's one of my favorite guys.
Crazy rebounder, right?
Yeah, crazy rebounder. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at W_A_Morris. In my bio, there's a link to some of my writing that you can check out. And then one last thing quickly, I just wanted to say rest in peace to Tommy Heinsohn, who commentated some of the first basketball games I've ever watched. So definitely hurts to see him go.
Yeah, I have a funny story. So a friend of mine played against the Celtics, right? So I used to train him. So he used to always, like during the off season, if he was playing and like me and my brothers would train him and we would like kind of foul him going to the basket, he would always scream like, ah. And so he was like, yeah, the refs are human. They naturally think if you yell or scream or whatever that you got fouled. And so if anybody's ever watched the NBA game, you hear it all the time. So this particular game, he drives to the basket, and you know, they do the replay and he didn't get fouled, but he knocks down 2 free throws. So of course, you know, Tommy being the homer that he is, just throws a tantrum on air because it was a close game. And so for the rest of the game, he didn't call him by his name. He just yelled and has the ball. And so it was so hilarious because he just refused to mention him by name every time he touched the ball. He just screamed each time. So that is like my favorite memory of him. And just the fact that he was such a homer, you know, like before like League Pass, when you really only saw like the nationally televised games and, you know, there's kind of no bias. And then once I got League Pass and started listening to Celtics games, it was just hilarious for me just because to me, he was the biggest homer there is, which, you know, he's a former player. So he's a Celtics legend. And, you know, it's just the fact that he did not hide his bias. That's one of the things I loved about listening to
him. Yeah, every time it was a close game and there was like a relatively questionable call, he threw a little tantrum, and it was always great. I always loved it. So yeah, definitely be missed.
All right. Yep, I agree. So thanks a lot. Thanks again for coming on. It's Raphael, NBA Draft Junkies. Got my guy Will Morris. Expect to hear him on again for part 3. Got the NBA draft coming up pretty soon. So hopefully we can do some more collaboration with me and Will because I like his takes. I like his confidence in his takes. And whether you like what he says or not, there's one thing you can't deny is that he knows what he's talking about as far as like doing the research and studying film. So, I mean, I call the NBA Draft Junkies for a reason, and this guy's definitely a draft junkie. So, again, it's Raphael, NBA Draft Junkies, Will Morris, and we are out.